Imagine you are standing at the edge of a forest that looks completely normal. Spruce trees, birch, the kind of northern boreal growth you find across interior Alaska. Dense, dark, the trees packed close together, their roots tangled in the thin soil above the permafrost. Healthy, green, alive-looking. You've been walking for 3 hours. The forest behind you has been exactly what you'd expect. Birds in the high branches, squirrels in the undergrowth, the distant sound of a ptarmigan somewhere to the north, mosquitoes doing what mosquitoes do in Alaskan summer. A living forest, full of the small, constant noise that living things make when they exist in a place that belongs to them. And then you take one more step, and it stops. All of it. Every sound, every movement. The mosquitoes that were orbiting your face a moment ago, gone. The wind that was moving through the upper branches, gone. The bird noise, the insect hum, the 1,000 small rustlings of a forest floor full of things going about their business, gone. And you stand there in the sudden absolute silence, looking at trees that look exactly the same as the trees behind you, growing in soil that looks exactly the same under a sky that is exactly the same sky. And you understand, without anyone having to tell you, without any sign or marker or explanation, you understand that you have just stepped somewhere that you were never supposed to go. And the forest ahead of you doesn't react, doesn't threaten, doesn't move. It simply waits. The way something waits that stopped needing to hurry a very long time ago. My name is Sable Okofer. I worked as a backcountry ranger at Kobuk Valley National Park in northwestern Alaska for 7 years. Kobuk Valley is one of the least visited national parks in the United States. In a good year, fewer than 15,000 people come here. Most of them fly in. There are no roads into the park, no visitor center in the traditional sense, no developed campgrounds or marked trails. What Kobuk Valley has is the valley itself, 25 miles of the Kobuk River winding through boreal forest, flanked by the Baird Mountains to the north and the Waring Mountains to the south. It has the Great Kobuk Sand Dunes, an astonishing thing to find in the Arctic, 25 square miles of sand dunes rising 60 feet from the valley floor, a remnant of an ancient glacial outwash plain that the wind has been sculpting for 10,000 years. And it has the forest. Miles and miles and miles of northern boreal forest, spruce, birch, alder, willow, stretching from the riverbanks up toward the mountain slopes, home to caribou, wolf, bear, fox, and the full spectrum of northern bird life that moves through the region on seasonal migration. A living landscape, one of the last genuinely intact subarctic ecosystems in the world. I loved it. 7 years in that valley, and I never stopped finding it remarkable. The quality of the light in late summer, the way the river moved slow and dark and clear, the caribou crossings in fall when the herds came through, and the whole valley seemed to breathe differently for a few days. I loved Kobuk Valley. But there was one part of it I never went back to, after the first time. Not because it was dangerous in any way I could measure or report, because it was wrong in a way that went deeper than measurement. Because some places carry a prohibition inside them that you feel in your chest before your mind catches up. And because 300 years of accumulated human wisdom, carefully maintained and passed down through generations by people who knew this land far better than I ever would, said stay out. And they were right. Let me tell you about the Inupiac people of the Kobuk Valley first, because this story doesn't make sense without them, and because their knowledge is the most important thing in it.
The Inupiac have lived in the Kobuk Valley region for thousands of years. They are the people of this land in the fullest sense. Not visitors, not seasonal users, but a community whose entire cultural and physical existence has been shaped by and has shaped this specific place. They know the valley the way you know your own house. Every bend in the river, every reliable fishing spot, every stretch of forest that holds berries in August, and every stretch that floods in spring. They know it across generations. Knowledge accumulated and tested and refined across hundreds of years of living in a place where the wrong decision can kill you, and the right decisions, made consistently over time, keep a community alive and whole. That knowledge includes prohibitions, places you don't go, things you don't do, boundaries that are maintained not because someone wrote them in a law, but because the people who came before learned what happened when the boundary was crossed and made sure everyone who came after them would know. The prohibition on the section of forest I'm going to describe has been maintained, as far as the elders I spoke with could determine, for approximately 300 years. 300 years. 10 to 12 generations of people who have lived beside this forest, who have hunted and fished and camped within miles of it every season, who have never, in 300 years, gone in. When I asked an elder named Thomas Atungala why, what the original reason was, what happened to establish the prohibition, he was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "The reason isn't the important part. The important part is that the people who made the rule knew what they were talking about, and the rule has held for 300 years because everyone who came after them respected that they knew." He paused. "You're going to ask me what's in there," he said. "Yes," I said. "I know," he said. "Everyone does. The answer is, we don't know exactly, because we haven't been in there for 300 years. And that's the point."
I first heard about the dead zone in my second year at Kobuk Valley. Not from Park Service materials. It wasn't in any briefing document, any trail guide, any resource management plan. I heard about it from a seasonal maintenance worker named Garrett Piku, who had been coming to Kobuk Valley every summer for 11 years. We were sitting on the bank of the Kobuk River one evening in late July, watching the light change on the water, and I mentioned that I had been exploring the forest sections along the northern bank that afternoon. He asked me which section. I described my route. He nodded slowly. "You didn't go past the old spruce stand at the bend." "Which bend?" I asked. He described it. I thought about it. "I don't think so. I turned back around mile 7. He relaxed slightly. "Good." I looked at him. "Why good?" He was quiet for a moment, looking at the river. "There's a section up there," he said, "about a mile past that spruce stand. You'll know it when you reach it. Everything goes quiet. Not just quiet, wrong quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you understand what the word silence actually means." He paused. "I walked into it once, my 3rd summer here, by accident." "What happened?" I said. "Nothing," he said. "That's the thing. Absolutely nothing happened. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes. My compass was spinning. My GPS had lost signal. The trees looked fine, healthy, normal, but there was nothing in them. No birds, no insects, nothing on the ground either. No tracks, no scat, no evidence that any animal had been anywhere near that section of forest. Ever." He looked at me. "I've been in a lot of wild places," he said. "I've been in places that scared me. This wasn't scary in that way. It was just wrong. Profoundly, completely wrong. In a way I can't be more specific about than that." "What did you do?" I asked. "I stepped back out," he said, "and I kept going. and I've never gone back." He picked up a stone and threw it into the river. "The Inupiac don't go in there," he said. I asked Thomas Atangala about it once. He told me the prohibition has been in place longer than anyone in his community can remember. He said that was the only information I needed. I sat there looking at the river. In the morning, I went to find the dead zone. I found it on my third attempt. The first 2 times, I couldn't locate the right section. Kobuk Valley backcountry has no marked trails, and the forest has a way of looking consistently similar across large distances. The third time, I found the spruce stand Garrett had described, identified it from a particular double-trunked tree he'd mentioned as a landmark, and continued north for approximately a mile. I heard it before I reached it. Or rather, I stopped hearing things before I reached it. The change was gradual at first. Over the course of about 200 yards, the bird noise thinned, then the insect sound, then the small movements in the undergrowth. By the time I reached what I came to think of as the boundary, a line I couldn't see but could feel as precisely as if it had been painted on the ground, there was nothing. I stood at the edge and looked in. The trees were spruce and birch, same as the forest I had been walking through. The spacing was normal. The growth looked healthy. Full canopies, no die-off, no insect damage, no signs of disease or lightning strike, or any of the things that produce dead patches in living forest. The trees looked exactly as they should look. They just looked like trees in a photograph of a forest, not a living forest. A perfect, detailed, completely accurate representation of one. I took out my compass. The needle spun. Not wobbled, spun. A full, continuous rotation, like a compass placed directly on top of a magnet, unable to find north because north had stopped mattering. I took out my GPS unit. The screen showed my last confirmed position, 200 yards south, and then a blank space where my current position should be. No satellite lock, no signal acquisition attempt, just a blank. I stood at the boundary for a long time. Then I stepped in. The silence was the first thing. I've tried to describe it to people many times since, and I keep running into the limits of what silence as a word actually conveys. Silence usually means an absence of sound. What I stepped into was not an absence. It was a presence, a physical thing that pressed against my ears, the way water presses when you're submerged. Dense, directional, as though the silence had weight, and the weight was pointed inward, toward the center of the dead zone, toward something I couldn't see, but that the silence seemed to be organized around. The temperature dropped immediately. Not drastically, maybe 5 degrees, but in a way that had no explanation because I was still under open sky, still in direct late afternoon sunlight in a forest of the same density I had just walked through. 5 degrees of temperature change with no physical cause. I noted it, kept walking. The first thing I checked was the trees themselves. I walked to the nearest spruce, a tree that appeared to be roughly the same age as the trees 20 feet behind me at the boundary. Same height, same canopy spread, same bark texture. I marked its height against a notch I made in a stick. Then I walked to a birch nearby and did the same. Then I walked deeper, maybe 40 yards from the boundary, and marked 2 more trees. The marks I'm referring to aren't just observational. I came back 6 months later, a full Alaskan summer, the growing season, the period during which every other tree in that forest added measurable new growth. Every tree I had marked was identical. Same height, to the inch. 0 growth. Not stressed, not diseased, not dead. The trees were alive by every visible measure. They simply
were not growing. Had not grown, as far as I could determine, in any time period I could establish. I went further in.
At approximately 80 yards from the boundary, I found the first evidence of what had happened to the things that had gone in before me. Bones. Not scattered, arranged. Not by human hands, I don't think, though the arrangement was too deliberate to be random. A circle roughly 4 feet across. Bones of multiple animals. I identified caribou, wolf, what looked like fox, several species of bird. All of them stripped completely clean, not chewed, clean, the way bones get after years of exposure have removed every trace of tissue, but placed, intentionally placed. Each piece set against the next with a care that felt almost architectural. There was no flesh, no fur, no feathers, nothing that should have been in that forest given the complete absence of scavengers, no ravens, no foxes, nothing that would clean a carcass. Things had died here, over time, many things, and something had arranged what remained. I photographed it. I kept walking. At approximately 120 yards in, I stopped. I stopped because I became aware of something I cannot fully explain. The silence had changed quality. Still total, no bird, no insect, no wind, nothing. But within the silence, something had shifted. I've spent a long time looking for the right description. The closest I can get is this. You know the moment in a room when you realize someone else is in it, not because you heard them, not because you saw movement, but because the space has changed in a way that can only mean a presence has been added to it. That. Very specifically that. Except I was standing in 80 acres of forest, and the presence I was registering was not human-sized. It was not behind me, or to my left, or up in a tree. It was in the forest, distributed through it. Like the silence itself was the presence. Like what I'd been walking through for the past 300 yards was not an absence of life, but a different kind of life entirely. Something that occupied the space the way air occupies a room, completely, invisibly, in every direction at once. And it was aware of me. The same clinical awareness Cody Hawes had described, the same specific quality of attention that has no human equivalent, but that the human nervous system recognizes immediately as something fundamental and not safe to ignore. I was being assessed, quietly, thoroughly, without any visible mechanism. I took one more step forward, and every hair on my body stood up simultaneously. Not fear, or not only fear, something more specific. A full-body recognition that I had reached the limit of where I was supposed to be. Not a threat, a boundary, as precise and absolute as a wall. I stood there for a moment. Then I said, out loud, to the forest, to the silence, to whatever was distributed through it and paying careful attention to me, I'm leaving now. I'm not going to come back. I understand. And I turned around, and I walked out, and the birds came back at exactly the same point where they had disappeared, the line I couldn't see but could feel, as though a switch had been thrown, and the forest resumed itself, like recording that had been paused. I filed a report. I described what I had found using the language available to me: an anomalous zone of reduced biological activity, navigation instrument malfunction, unusual acoustic properties, possible evidence of historic animal mortality. I recommended the area be flagged for further scientific investigation.
My supervisor at the time, a man named Lars Henriksen with 23 years with the Alaska Park Service, read my report and called me into his office. He put the report on the desk between us. He said, "Have you spoken with Thomas at Tungala about this area?" "Not yet," I said. "Do that before you submit this anywhere formal," he said. I looked at him. "You know about it?" "Everybody who's been here long enough knows about it, and everybody who's been here long enough has had the same conversation with Thomas or his father before him or someone in the Inupiac community." "What's the conversation?" I said. Lars looked at the report. "The conversation is that the prohibition exists for a reason, that the reason has been understood by the people of this valley for 300 years, and that every time someone from the Park Service tries to formally investigate, document, or explain the area, something goes wrong." "What kind of something?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. "Equipment fails beyond normal malfunction, not just compasses and GPS, cameras, recorders, sampling equipment. One soil science team lost their entire data set. Every sample they took from inside the boundary was contaminated in a way the lab couldn't classify. Not with anything identifiable, just wrong. The samples were wrong. The lab techs said it was like they'd sampled from somewhere that wasn't operating under normal chemical rules." He paused. "And the people who go in more than once, the ones who go back for follow-up investigations, they start having trouble sleeping, trouble concentrating. One researcher described it as feeling like she'd left something behind in there, like part of her attention was permanently turned toward the dead zone and she couldn't fully redirect it." I thought about the bones in the circle. "How deep did she go?" I asked. "About as far as you did," he said. He had read my report carefully. "What happened to her?" "She transferred out," he said, 6 months later. "Took a posting in Florida. As far as I know, she's fine, but she never came back to Alaska." Lars folded his hands on the desk. He said, "I'm not telling you not to submit the report. That's your professional call. But I'm telling you to talk to Thomas first, and to think carefully about whether formal investigation is what that place actually needs."
I went to see Thomas at Tungala that evening. He lived in the village of Kobuk, a small community on the river about 15 miles from the park boundary. I'd met him several times before, a quiet, careful man in his 60s who served as a cultural liaison between the Inupiac community and the Park Service. I told him where I had been. I described what I had found. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. We were sitting on the small porch of his house, looking out toward the river. "How far in did you go?" he asked. I told him. He nodded. "You stopped at the right place." "How do you know there's a right place?" I asked. "Because everyone who has ever gone in and come back out whole stopped at approximately the same point," he said. "We have accounts going back a very long time. The ones who stopped, who felt the boundary and respected it, they came out. The ones who pushed past it." He paused. "Not all of them came back, and the ones who did were different." "Different how?" I asked. He thought about it carefully. "Like something in them had been rearranged," he said. "Not removed, not damaged, rearranged. Like the inside of a house after someone has moved all the furniture to slightly wrong positions. Everything is still there, but nothing is quite where it belongs." I sat with that. "What is it?" I asked. "What's in there?" Thomas looked at the river for a long time. "The honest answer," he said finally, "is that we don't know, not specifically. The prohibition is 300 years old, and the reason for it is older than that. It comes from a time before the prohibition was formalized, from direct experience. What we know is what it does. What we know is where its boundary is. What we know is that it responds differently to different kinds of attention. "What do you mean?" I said. "If you go in casually, not knowing, just walking through the forest, most people don't even notice it. The silence, maybe, a vague unease. They walk out and they describe it as a strange patch of woods, and that's the end of it. If you go in carefully, with attention, with awareness, the way a ranger goes, or a scientist, or someone who is actively looking, it notices you back. That's the point where the boundary becomes clear. That's the point where you need to stop. And if you push past the boundary, past the point where it has made clear that you've reached the limit." He paused. "That's when the rearranging happens," I said. "Yes," he said. "And the prohibition," I said, 300 years ago, what started it? Something must have happened." Thomas looked at me with the particular patience of someone who has answered a version of this question many times. 11 people, he said, a hunting party. 11 people went into that section of forest 300 years ago, following a caribou herd that had gone in ahead of them. 7 came back. The other 4? He shook his head. "They were found," he said, "eventually, at different times over the following weeks, each of them at the boundary, standing at the edge, facing out. But they didn't come back, not in any way that mattered. They were there, breathing, standing, but whatever had been inside them, whatever made them themselves, it was gone. They lived for a few more years, physically, but they were not the people who had walked in." He looked at me. "The prohibition started the day the last one was found, and it has held for 300 years, because it is the correct response to what is in that forest. Not investigation, not documentation, not scientific analysis. Acknowledgement and distance. Those are the only tools that work." I did not submit my formal report. I wrote a brief internal memo describing an area of noted navigational anomaly in the northern forest section, grid reference attached, recommended for exclusion from backcountry routing. I added a note, "Consult Inupiac cultural liaisons before any formal investigation of this area is considered." Lars Henriksen initialed it and filed it. As far as I know, it's still there, a single page in a filing cabinet in a ranger station in a national park that fewer than 15,000 people visit in a good year. The dead zone is still there. The trees are still not growing. The compass still spins. The animals still stop at the boundary and go no further. And 300 years of careful, accumulated, hard-won wisdom still says, "Don't go in." I respect that now in a way that I didn't fully respect it the morning I set out to find the boundary. Not because I was threatened, not because anything terrible happened to me, because I stood at a boundary that was not arbitrary, that was not superstition or cultural habit or the accumulated fear of people who didn't know better. It was the accumulated knowledge of people who knew exactly what they were talking about, who had paid 300 years ago a very specific and terrible price for that knowledge, and who had turned that price into protection for every generation that came after them, including mine. I left Kobuk Valley after 7 years. Good reasons, professional ones, an opportunity elsewhere, a change I was ready for. But I'll be honest, the dead zone was also part of it. Not because of what I found there, because of what I kept thinking about afterward. Thomas Atungala had said it responded differently to different kinds of attention, and I had gone in carefully, deliberately, with full professional awareness, an active observer, the kind of attention that made it notice me back.
For weeks after my visit, I found myself turning toward the north in quiet moments, standing at my window in the station looking toward the forest, waking at 3 in the morning with the very specific sense, not threatening, not frightening, just unignorable, that something in the direction of the dead zone was turned toward me. Not with malice, with the same quality I had felt standing inside it, clinical, careful, thorough. The feeling faded over months, slowly, the way a sound fades when you walk far enough away from its source. By the time I left Kobuk Valley, it was barely noticeable. But I want to be precise about what barely noticeable means. It means it was still there. A quarter turn of attention, a small, persistent sense of being in the peripheral vision of something I had made the mistake of looking directly at. I don't think it followed me. I don't think it has any interest in me at the distance I've put between us. But I think the moment I stepped across that boundary and stood in the silence and was assessed, I think that's a transaction that doesn't fully close. Thomas told me the people who pushed past the boundary came back rearranged. I didn't push past. I stopped where it told me to stop, and I said I understood, and I left. And I think that's the difference. I think the rearranging only happens when the thing in that forest has to do the stopping for you.
The prohibition has held for 300 years. I think it should hold for 300 more. I think whatever is in that section of Kobuk Valley Forest, whatever ancient, distributed, non-human awareness has claimed that 80 acres of growing but not growing trees as its particular space in the world, I think it has earned its boundary. I think the Inupiac people who have maintained the prohibition across 300 years of living right alongside it, hunting within miles of it, fishing the river below it, raising their children in its shadow, I think they have understood something that the scientific method and the Park Service briefing documents and the formal investigation protocols are simply not equipped to address. Some things are outside the scope of measurement. Some things require a different response. Not investigation, not documentation, even understanding. Just acknowledgement. This is here. It has been here longer than we have. It has its space, and we have ours. And the boundary between them is exactly where 300 years of hard-earned wisdom says it is. Not one step further. If you ever find yourself in Kobuk Valley, in the forest along the northern bank of the river, walking through the boreal growth in the particular golden light of an Alaskan summer afternoon, pay attention to the sound. When the birds are singing and the insects are humming, and the small things in the undergrowth are doing what small things in undergrowth do, you're fine. Keep walking. But if the sound starts to thin, if the birds fade first, then the insects, then the rustling of the undergrowth, if the silence comes in gradually and then all at once, stop. Don't take another step. Don't get out your compass to check it. Don't try your GPS. Don't look for the explanation. Just stop and turn around and walk back toward the sound. And when the birds return, when the first insect finds your face again and the undergrowth resumes its small rustling life, keep walking and don't look back. Because whatever is in the silence behind you, whatever has been in that silence for longer than 300 years of careful, respectful prohibition, it isn't chasing you. It never chases. It simply waits. Patient in the way that something waits when time stopped mattering to it before your great-great-great-grandmother was born. And as long as you keep walking toward the sound, as long as you put distance between yourself and the silence, you'll be fine. You'll be exactly fine. Just don't stop and don't look back. And whatever you do, don't go looking for the boundary, the way I did. Because the boundary is real, and it knows when you've found it. And once it knows, you'll spend a very long time afterward being aware of something at the very edge of your attention, turned toward you in the direction of north. Friends, that was the story of the Northern Forest, Kobuk Valley, the dead zone. 300 years of prohibition held by people who knew exactly what they were protecting everyone from. If this story reached into something quiet and cold inside you, give it a like. It means the world for this channel, and it takes you 2 seconds. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. Every story here is original. Every one is built to stay. Drop a comment and tell me, when Sable stepped across the boundary and felt that presence distributed through the whole forest, clinical, aware, assessing, and then said out loud, "I understand, I'm leaving." Do you think it actually understood her? Do you think that's why she came out whole? Or do you think something else decided to let her go? I keep landing on a different answer every time I think about it. Because the thing that troubles me most about this story isn't what's in the dead zone. It's that the dead zone has a boundary. A specific, consistent, felt boundary that has been in exactly the same place for 300 years. And boundaries aren't for keeping things in. They're for keeping things out. Which means whatever is inside that forest, whatever ancient, patient, distributed awareness has made 80 acres of Kobuk Valley its permanent and inviolable space, is not in that forest because it can't leave. It's in that forest because it chooses to be. Until next time, respect the prohibition, and when the forest goes quiet, turn around.
Hello friends. Did you know that nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy the content, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your interaction not only supports the channel's growth, but also helps these stories reach more people. Thank you all for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's get started.
Imagine you stand in a fire lookout tower at 2 a.m., miles from civilization, when you see something in the valley below that shouldn't exist. A light flashing a message that makes your blood run cold. That's where I was 3 nights ago, and I wish to God I'd never answered it. My name is Owen Cassidy, and I've been a forest ranger for the National Park Service for 12 years. I took the lookout position at Devil's Thumb Station because I wanted isolation. After my divorce, after everything fell apart, I needed silence. I needed to be alone with the trees and the stars and nothing else. Devil's Thumb sits at the edge of the Casca-Wulsh Wilderness, 800 square miles of dense forest, rocky outcroppings, and valleys so deep that sunlight only touches their floors for a few hours each day. The lookout tower itself is a relic from the 1960s, all wood and glass, perched on a granite peak like a sentinel watching over an empire of pines. I'd been up there for 6 weeks when it happened. The night started like any other. I made my rounds at sunset, checking the horizon with my binoculars, scanning for smoke, logging weather data. Wind from the northwest at 8 miles per hour, temperature dropping to 42 degrees, clear skies, nothing remarkable. I heated up a can of chili on my camping stove, ate it while reading a paperback western I'd found in the tower's small library, probably left by a ranger decades ago. The pages were yellow and brittle. Around 11, I shut off my headlamp and lay down on the cot in the corner. Sleep came easy up there. No car alarms, no sirens, no neighbors arguing through thin walls. Just wind against glass and the occasional call of a night bird. I woke at 2:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my watch, annoyed at whatever had pulled me from sleep. At first, I thought it was an animal, a bear nosing around the base of the tower maybe, or an elk bugling in the distance. But the tower was quiet, too quiet. Then I saw it, a light down in Shepherd's Valley. I sat up, my heart already beginning to hammer in my chest. Shepherd's Valley had been closed since 1989. A series of landslides had made it too unstable, too dangerous. The trail leading down had been blocked off, and over the years, nature had reclaimed it entirely. Nobody went into Shepherd's Valley. Nobody could. But there it was, a light, maybe 3 miles away, winking on and off in the darkness. I grabbed my binoculars and pressed them to my eyes, adjusting the focus. The light was small, like a flashlight beam, and it was moving in a pattern, not random, deliberate. Dot, dot, dot. Dash, dash, dash. Dot, dot, dot. My mouth went dry. SOS. Someone was sending a distress signal. I watched for a full minute, my breath fogging the binoculars' lenses. The pattern repeated, exact and rhythmic. SOS. 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 My hands were shaking as I lowered the binoculars. This didn't make sense. Shepherd's Valley was inaccessible. Even experienced climbers avoided it. The landslides had left the terrain fractured and unstable. And yet, someone was down there, signaling for help. I grabbed my radio and switched to the emergency channel. "Base, this is Devil's Thumb. Do you copy?" Static crackled. Then a voice came through. Sharon Oakes, the night dispatcher. "Copy, Devil's Thumb. What's your status?" "I've got a visual on a distress signal, Morse code SOS. Location is Shepherd's Valley, approximately 3 miles southeast of my position." A pause. "Say again? Did you say Shepherd's Valley?" "Affirmative." Another pause, longer this time. "Owen, that valley's been closed for over 30 years. Are you sure about what you're seeing?" I looked through the binoculars again. The light was still there, still blinking. Dot, dot, dot. Dash, dash, dash. "I'm sure. Someone's down there." Sharon's voice turned serious. "All right, I'm dispatching SAR. Sit tight. They'll be at your location by dawn." "Copy that." I spent the rest of the night glued to the window, watching that light blink its desperate message into the void. I tried to make sense of it. A hiker who had ignored the closure signs? Someone injured, stranded? But how had they gotten past the barricades? And why signal from the valley floor instead of trying to climb out? The light never stopped, never faltered, just that same 3-part rhythm. SOS. Save our souls. The search and rescue team arrived at dawn. 4 of them. Marcus Reed, the team leader, Hannah Voss, a medic, and 2 others whose names I didn't catch. They were professionals, efficient and calm, but I could see the skepticism in their eyes when I pointed toward Shepherd's Valley. "You're sure it was Morse code?" Marcus asked, scanning the valley with his own binoculars. "Positive. I know Morse. My grandfather was Navy. He taught me when I was a kid." Marcus nodded slowly. "All right, we'll check it out. Hannah, you're with me. You two," he gestured to the other rescuers, "stay here with Owen. If we need backup, we'll radio." They started down the trail just after 6. I watched them disappear into the tree line, swallowed by the forest. The hours crawled by. I paced the tower, drank too much coffee, checked my radio every 10 minutes. The 2 rescuers who'd stayed behind, Carter and Jameson, sat outside on the tower's deck, talking quietly. I couldn't focus on anything. My eyes kept drifting to Shepherd's Valley. At 10:32 a.m., the radio crackled to life. "Devil's Thumb, this is Marcus. Do you copy?" I lunged for the radio. "Copy. What's your status?" "We found it." My heart leapt. "You found the person?" "No." Marcus's voice was strange, flat. "We found the light." "What do you mean?" "Owen, you need to see this. Send Carter and Jameson down. We're at the coordinates I'm transmitting now." I relayed the message. Carter and Jameson exchanged glances, then started down the trail. I wanted to go with them, but protocol dictated I stay at the tower. I was the eyes, the lookout. So I waited and waited. The radio stayed silent until almost noon. When Marcus finally called back, his voice was different, shaken. "Owen, I don't know how to explain this. Just tell me what you found." "We're at the source of the light. It's a flashlight, an old one, probably from the 70s or 80s. It's wedged in the crook of a tree, about 8 feet off the ground." I frowned. "Someone put it there?" "That's the thing. The tree grew around it. The barks incorporated it into the trunk. It's been here for decades." My stomach tightened. "That's impossible. I saw it flashing last night." "I know. It's still flashing." The world seemed to tilt. "What?" "The flashlight is still on, still sending the SOS signal. The batteries should have died 30, maybe 40 years ago, but it's still going." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. Marcus continued, his voice low. "There's something else. We found a weathered pack near the base of the tree. Inside, there's an ID, a driver's license." "Whose?" "Thomas Gaines, issued in 1986. The name meant nothing to me. "Who is he?" "We're running the name now. But Owen, whoever he was, he's not here. There's no body, no remains, just the flashlight and the pack."
I couldn't stay in the tower. I broke protocol and hiked down to join them. The descent into Shepherd's Valley was treacherous. The trail was overgrown, barely visible beneath decades of leaf litter and fallen branches. Twice I had to scramble over massive boulders left by the landslides. My legs burned, my lungs ached, but I kept moving. I found the team in a clearing near the valley floor. The tree was massive, a Douglas fir that had to be over 100 feet tall. And there, about 8 feet up, was the flashlight. It was an old ever-ready model, the kind with a heavy metal casing and a big reflector lens. The tree had grown around it, bark curling over the base, holding it in place like a hand clutching a torch. And it was still on, still blinking. Dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. I felt my skin prickle. "How is this possible?" I whispered. Hannah, the medic, shook her head. "It's not. Those batteries shouldn't last more than a few hours, maybe a day if they were high quality. This thing's been running for decades." Marcus was crouched by the pack, carefully going through its contents. He pulled out a canteen,
a rolled-up sleeping bag, a compass. Then, a small notebook, its cover stained and warped by moisture. "There's writing," Marcus said, flipping through the pages. "Looks like a journal." "What does it say?" I asked. He read aloud, his voice echoing in the quiet valley. September 14th, 1986. Made it to Shepherd's Valley. The landslides are worse than I thought. Might have to turn back, but I'm close now. I can feel it. September 15th, 1986. Found the old ranger's cabin. It's still standing, mostly. No sign of what I'm looking for, but the maps say it should be here. I'll keep searching. September 16th, 1986. Something's wrong. My flashlight won't turn off. I've tried everything, new batteries, different switches. It just keeps blinking. Always the same pattern. I didn't set it to Morse code. I don't even know Morse code. My blood turned to ice. Marcus's eyes met mine, and I saw my own fear reflected there. He kept reading. September 17th, 1986. I tried to leave. The trail is gone, completely gone, like it was never there. I'm trapped. The flashlight is still blinking. I can't make it stop. It's draining me. I feel weaker every day. September 20th, 1986. I tied the flashlight to a tree. Maybe someone will see it. Maybe someone will come. I don't have much time. Whatever is in this valley, it doesn't want me to leave. The entry ended mid-sentence. There were no more pages. "Jesus," Carter muttered. I looked up at the flashlight, still blinking its rhythmic message. "We need to turn it off." "Owen, I don't think we need to turn it off." I grabbed a fallen branch and tried to knock the flashlight loose, but the tree had grown too firmly around it. The bark was like iron. Marcus pulled me back. "Stop, we can't just destroy evidence. This is evidence of what? A haunted flashlight? A man who vanished 40 years ago? None of this makes sense." Hannah stepped between us, her voice calm but firm. "We need to call this in. Get a forensics team out here. Figure out what happened to Thomas Gaines." I wanted to argue, but she was right. I stepped back, my hands shaking. The flashlight kept blinking. Back at the tower, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that light. ... Sharon called with an update. They'd run Thomas Gaines's name through the system. He'd been reported missing in September 1986 after failing to return from a solo hiking trip into the Kaskawulsh wilderness. Search parties had combed the area for weeks but found nothing. Eventually, the case went cold. "What was he looking for?" I asked. His missing person report mentions something about a family legend. His great-grandfather was a ranger in these mountains back in the 1920s, supposedly vanished under mysterious circumstances. Gaines thought he could find out what happened. A chill ran down my spine. Did he? We don't know. But Owen, there's something else. We checked the records for Shepherd's Valley. The landslides that closed it, they happened in September 1986, the same month Gaines went missing. I gripped the radio tighter. You think he caused them? I think whatever happened to him happened right before the valley became inaccessible. Maybe that's not a coincidence. That night, I watched Shepherd's Valley from the tower. The flashlight was still visible, still blinking, but now it felt different, not like a distress signal, like a warning. I thought about Thomas Gaines, alone in that valley, his flashlight refusing to turn off. I thought about him tying it to the tree, hoping someone would see, hoping someone would come. And someone had. Me. Around midnight, I saw something else. A second light. It was deeper in the valley, farther from the first, and it was blinking too. ... Dash, dash, dash. My heart stopped. I grabbed my binoculars, hands trembling so badly I could barely focus. The second light was smaller, dimmer, but the pattern was unmistakable. SOS. I radioed Sharon. There's another one. Another what? Another light, another signal, deeper in the valley. Silence on the other end. Then, Owen, that's impossible. I'm looking at it right now. We'll send the team back at first light. No, my voice cracked. Don't send anyone else down there. Owen, it's a trap. Whatever's in that valley, it's been calling for help for 40 years, and every time someone answers, it takes them. You're not making sense. Thomas Gaines went looking for his great-grandfather, and now he's gone too. How many others, how many lights are down there blinking in the dark, waiting for someone to find them? Sharon's voice was gentle, like she was talking to a child. Owen, you need to get some rest. We'll discuss this in the morning. But I knew I was right. The valley didn't want to be saved. It wanted to be fed. I made my decision then. I wasn't going to let anyone else go down there. I wasn't going to be responsible for another disappearance. I packed my gear, descended from the tower, and hiked to the barricades at the entrance to Shepherd's Valley. Then I reinforced them. I dragged fallen trees across the trail, piled rocks, tore down what was left of the old trail markers. It took me all night. As dawn broke, I stood at the edge of the valley and looked down into its depths. I could still see the lights, both of them now, blinking in the shadows. SOS, SOS. I'm sorry, I whispered, but I can't help you. I turned and walked away. I resigned from the Park Service 2 days later, told them I needed to take care of family business, which wasn't entirely a lie. I needed to take care of myself. The official report on Thomas Gaines listed his case as remains recovered, even though no body was ever found. The flashlight was logged as evidence and supposedly removed from the tree. I don't know if that's true. I never went back to check. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder. I wonder if the light is still blinking. I wonder if new lights have joined it. I wonder if somewhere, in some dark valley, in some forgotten corner of the world, there are dozens of flashlights, hundreds, all crying out the same message into the void. Save our souls. And I wonder what happens if someone finally answers. But I'll never know, because I learned something in that tower, something that Thomas Gaines learned too late. Some calls for help aren't meant to be answered. Some signals are warnings. And some valleys should stay closed forever. Friends, that was the story for today. I hope you enjoyed it and that it stayed with you in the best chilling way possible. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. Your time and support truly mean more than you know. This channel is growing because of listeners like you. If you want more real and disturbing encounters like this, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel continue bringing these stories to life. And if this story gave you chills, let me know in the comments. I read them all, and your thoughts make this community stronger. Until next time, turn off the lights, double-check the room, and I'll see you in the next story.